right now. And if it had a different different angle, it would probably have been blocked. So this is indeed the moon, which is about to turn red and give birth to Baal and destroy all of mankind. So anyone who does filter in, I see we've got a viewer in there, which actually may be me. I'm not sure. I believe the group chat is on. If not, somebody can send me a message if anything on the group chat's not working. Let's see here. It is currently using... Oh, well, probably one problem. You can probably hear me better now. I just used the external mic actually for sound. Please let me know if you can use the group chat ASAP, because I have no clue if this is open for anybody else. And if you can hear me. Am I able to be heard? I have absolutely no clue. This is the first time that I've actually used the Google Hangouts feature, other than a very brief test that I used before. That's really all I did. I have no clue what the audio or video quality are like. I have no clue if the group chat is working. I have literally no clue about everything. I'm not even exactly sure if you're seeing this whole screen or if you're just seeing the video feed. So I'll let you look at the moon for a moment here while I sit here and wait if somebody comments. Now I'm going to fool around with these settings because that should help. Oh, you can actually do the bandwidth settings. Oh, interesting. Let's see here. It's using the correct webcam, obviously. It's using the correct everything. What's this? Cameraman, screen share, chat. Oh, crap. I hope that didn't delete people from the room. But let's see here. Present to everyone. What the hell does that mean? What the hell does present to everyone mean? Somebody tell me what the fuck that means. Oh, God. I probably should have worked this out long before I actually started the stream. But like I said, I wasn't going to do a stream. There are 37 people in here at the moment, and nobody has commented. Nobody is in the group chat telling me what to do. It's a big issue. Gotta tilt this up. The moon is actually moving. They're seeing my finger. Let's see, it's right out my window. Come on. A little bit better anyway. That nice bright blue is going to become blood red, I believe. I have no clue whatsoever if you can even hear me. So yeah, I'm just going to sit here and say random things because I have no clue if my microphone's even on. We've got other stuff here as well that I need to check into. That's nonsense. Oh, my webcam controls. Let me see here. The hell is it in use by Gmail? Oh, God. Oh, goodness. No, we don't need it zoomed in quite that much. This is an HD feed. I have no clue if you can hear me. I have no clue if this video is live. I have no clue how to do anything. Oh my goodness, it's absolutely horrible. Absolutely terrible, my good sir. I know I don't need to screen share. That just deletes the chat. What's the control room? What the fuck does this do? Probably screw up the feed. It appears to do absolutely nothing. Oh, crap. What happened? Ah, shit. Fuck. Anus. Well, that sucks. Oh. Give me a clue, folks. What the hell am I supposed to do here? All right, well, I'm going to go take a leak and hopefully somebody can comment before I come back if the chat is actually live. I don't care if there's an error loading the app. Hopefully somebody can tell me if they can see the video, if they can hear me, and if the chat is indeed working, because I have absolutely no clue. I don't honestly know. So I'll be right back momentarily, and until then, peace out, because I got to take a piss. Oh, yeah. Alrighty here. Let's see. Nobody is in the chat room, which is a problem. Oh, how the fuck am I supposed to do anything here? We'll try this again, even though it's probably a bad idea. "83 people and none of you can use the group chat? I have no clue." I'd end up having to just record the blood moon when it phases through, and then upload it normally if this isn't going to work, unfortunately. Oh, you can see a plane going over the moon. How lovely. It's probably some ancient pagan god, not actually a plane, but that's all good. Let's see. Oh, yep, there was an error loading my app. Why am I not surprised? Now watch, this whole time I've been like streaming my desktop or something and didn't even realize it. Wouldn't surprise me in the least. Google's known for such things. Oh, we're approaching 100 viewers right now. The inaugural live stream tour of Styx. I'd like to do like a radio show or something in this manner, but if the group chat doesn't actually work, then there's really not much point to that. None of the apps work. Absolutely nothing works on this. You can probably hear the rednecks down the street with their pickup truck. Oh, okay. Thankfully, I've got someone trying to help me through this. This might take me a minute to figure it out. But apparently it is live. That's the first step. That's the most important one. So I'm assuming that people can hear me and that they're currently seeing what the webcam is pointed at, which is kind of the point. But anyway, for those of you who do not know, of course, the blood moon is tonight. We've got perfectly clear skies at the moment, no clouds. You watch like 5 minutes before it turns red, probably a cloud will go in front of it. But yes, this is the blood moon live stream, last blood moon of the tetrad. A lot of people thought it was on the 28th. That really depends on your time zone. We're in a prime viewing location. We're pretty close to, the peak area where it really will be visible. And right now we've got basically the best weather for seeing it. I think some parts of the Caribbean also will be best for viewing it. I think parts of Europe right now are actually stormy, and parts of the sort of mid-Atlantic states actually, I believe, are getting rain right now, so they're not really going to see much. They're going to be relying on streams. For those who are just tuning in, I hadn't planned to do a live stream, actually, of the blood moon. I was hoping to engage people here in the group chat to sort of talk about some of the apocalyptic things regarding it. I don't know if the group chat's even open, though, right now, so I'll hold off on that for a moment. I've got someone trying to help me through this. Anyway, it will be for about an hour tonight. It hasn't started yet. The moon is full. It's a super moon. I've got it zoomed in slightly right now, but it's a rather large moon. I'll probably have to move the webcam at least slightly over time because it's going to move through the sky as the moon tends to do around the Earth. So if you'll give me a minute here, I'm going to try to sort of take counsel with my friend here who's helping me actually do this. No clue. So the audio is live and the chat is live. Okay, so I'm assuming that the Google Plus chat requires you to be using your Google Plus account to chat there, which means that some people with newer accounts or very old accounts may not actually be able to chat there. Google's nonsense, basically, when you really think about it. They never should have done that in the first place. It was more streamlined before. I'm not sure why they did that. YouTube was its own isolated community. They didn't need to use their social media platform, but apparently we are fully live, which is good to know. And awaiting the moment of the birth of Baal, Moloch, Satan, whatever you want to call this deity, because, people are basically expecting that that's what's going to happen. Yeah, let me go through briefly some of the things that people have said to me, specifically regarding what they expect is going to happen, because I've gotten it from other occultists, not necessarily in the same occult tradition as myself, but occultists in general, from Wiccans, people who do New Agery stuff, people who are more satanic. I've gotten it from all of them. Mormons, certain Mormon congregations, not the Mormon church, its sort of higher up authority, but some of the subgroups within Mormonism. Certain Christians, usually Protestant. The Catholics don't really care about the tetrad, it seems, which is funny because their Pope comes to the United States, moon turns to blood. And, there was that line of rain earlier that sort of collapsed as it was headed towards D.C. while he was speaking there. People thought that was a little mysterious, but they don't read too much into it, except for that one congressman who was drinking from the Pope's used glass. And then also certain Messianic Judaist groups appear to put some stock into it. The basic things I've heard, the largest group appears to believe that this has something to do with economic collapse. They call it the Shemitah cycle. Specifically, every seventh 7-year cycle is a jubilee. That's more significant. So they're sort of predicting the collapse of the world economy. which, if you listen to economists right now, sounds like it's probably the most possible of the things that are kind of cataclysmic that people are talking about. There are a lot of economists right now that are saying there are some definitive problems here in China. Doesn't really matter. The whole world could, potentially get hammered and the economy drops out beneath everybody. So that's possibly the most likely. Others were saying, oh, an asteroid's going to hit either in the Atlantic somewhere, or they specifically said off the coast of Puerto Rico. That's the second one that I've heard. NASA, of course, addressed this specific concern. They can't say much about the economy, but they came in to sort of take care of people's fears and say, no asteroid. We would have seen it. Now, of course, they missed the one that was headed towards Russia that almost flatlined that whole city a few years ago. So you can't put necessarily any more stock into that than you can the doomsday people that are, saying all of these things that they predict will happen because of the blood moon. I find it funny. They appear to believe that instead of two things coincidentally aligning, one is causing the other, correlation and causation. They believe that the blood moon coming is a sign that says that something else is going to happen. I don't necessarily take that line of reasoning. Some people do. And the latest was actually the Mormon Church had to put out a statement, the Church of Latter-day Saints, because apparently around Utah itself, some of these smaller, more rural Mormon LDS congregations are really more survivalistic than the mainstream of the church. They actually have, I'm not shitting you here, they actually have doomsday vaults out there, literal fallout bunker style things that they've built out in the hills of Utah, where they actually can take refuge. Some of these congregations have built these things. I'm not sure whether the church's authority itself is involved with their construction, but they do have them. They have apparently been buying up a lot of food, clothing, fuel, sundry goods, basically, the sort of things that a person who is looking forward to a cataclysm would necessarily buy if they intended to wait out the end times. And so the church itself decided to put out a statement regarding this because they thought people were getting upset. People were getting worried. They said, what are these Mormons doing? And are they predicting that the end is quite literally physically coming now? Some people might look at that and say, well, they must know something about this. I take the Jehovah's Witness sort of line of, well, the JWs did the same thing back in the early 1900s. They started building these bunkers under their homes, awaiting the apocalypse. It did not come. They predicted it several times. People went bankrupt because they predicted it. It doesn't mean that they have some inside knowledge. It means that people are jumpy. And I can understand why they'd be jumpy, quite frankly. In the world of today, with nuclear proliferation and disease, especially after Ebola got everybody worried. Ebola, any other epidemic diseases, the idea of a mega quake, the idea of mega volcanoes, all of these different things, unpreparedness for asteroids, war, nuclear war especially, instability, terrorism, all of these things that used to be covered only by centralized media. You would think of a major newspaper or later a major television station, where the news was controlled. They could sort of stroke people's fear when they needed to, and they could calm them back down when they wanted to. It was very easy to do. Many people, especially in some rural areas, didn't even really have access to what you would consider national, certainly international news on a regular basis. If it was in newsprint. That doesn't have the same impact as social media in this day and age. Instantaneously, something happens somewhere in the world. Somebody gets beaten by the police. Somebody dies in a riot in some far-off third world country. A dictator is overthrown. People don't know about it the next day, as they would 100 years ago. They don't know about it a few weeks later, as they would a couple hundred years ago. They know about it within seconds. We knew that Gaddafi was dead within minutes of his death. We knew about the Benghazi attack within a half an hour of it actually happening. This is the age of instant news, and what this does is people who are looking already at the media with sort of a skepticism about their honesty especially, I'm not going to say alarmists. I'm not going to say fearmongers, because there are legitimate concerns that these people have. They look at these news stories and they get them instantaneously. They can aggregate them. They can get a live feed of basically anything on Earth. Gaza gets bombed. There's a live stream. Meteor hits. There's a live stream of the aftermath. Here's a live stream of Nepal post-earthquake. And they synthesize all that in their minds and on their news feeds, and it causes them alarm. There's a reason why survivalist goods and guns and things like that are being sold more prevalently in areas where they're readily obtained. I would say probably people are obtaining them even where they're not, on the black market. Let's face it, there are guns in Europe, even though guns are outlawed in many of these nations. If you think otherwise, then you're not understanding how a black market operates. It does make sense in some ways to prepare in that manner when you really think about it. I mean, why would somebody want to be caught with their pants down? The cost of preparing for a cataclysm, regardless of whether it's some sort of mega catastrophe like, earthquake that ripples across the world and destroys all cities, or martial law or something, or whether it's just, you're expecting a bad tornado season. There's nothing conspiratorial about it. It wasn't caused by HAARP or CERN or anything like that. There's no conspiracy involved. You're just concerned that something could happen to uproot your lifestyle. Your home could burn down. Your loved one could get some epidemic disease on their trip to Africa, something like that. And so people prepare for it. I don't honestly blame them for that when I really think about it. I used to think, well, some of this stuff is sort of funny, but in the long run, their point is valid. What they're saying, what they're thinking and doing does make some semblance of sense. I think there are some people who carry it a little too far. I don't have a doomsday bunker below my basement stocked with dry goods and hazmat suits and an arsenal or anything like that. But if somebody does, if that gives them comfort, if it makes them sleep better at night, more power to them, I guess. But as for the blood moon itself, that's sort of the conspiracy, fear, doomsday aspect of it. That's as far as that goes. As far as the spiritual aspect of it goes, it's a little bit different. The spiritual aspect is it's an eclipse, really. It's not an ultra rare event. It's not a common event, especially the full tetrad, as with a normal, singular eclipse. The moon turning the blood is definitely going to be interesting to watch. I didn't get to watch the last three. I think two of them weren't visible here. And the one that was, it was bad weather, so I never actually got to see it. And trust me, when the moon starts turning a little bit orangey red here, I'll probably be silent for a while because I'll be craning my neck out the window, not just looking at the feed that you're looking at. For those who want to watch this feed, though, that's why I'm providing it. Actually, let me adjust my webcam here because the moon is starting to move further up into the sky. I don't want anyone to miss this. Let's see if I can crane. No, I can't move that part. Just a moment here, folks. Un momento, por favor. Let's see. That's a little bit better. You can see it a little bit more clearly. I didn't move it that far, but that's all good. But yes, we'll be watching the moon turn red like blood because it's going to be funny to watch that. And nobody has joined the group chat yet. I'm assuming that that's a function of Google's limitations on who can actually use the group chat. I've had the same problem. I've watched live news feeds before. And strangely enough, many times, I had to make my post on a notepad file, copy and paste it in, because otherwise it kept giving me errors, and I'm not exactly sure why. I wasn't typing special characters. I wasn't making the comments too long. They were like Twitter-length comments, and yet they wouldn't post for some reason. I'm not exactly sure why that happened. And it continued for months. I don't know why Google didn't get to it sooner, and finally they fixed it. But then in many cases, I would post one comment, and it would go through just fine. People would respond or whatever. Then I would try to post another comment, and it would say you're blocked from commenting for X number of seconds or minutes or whatever. And it was only after one comment, and then at other times it took 5 or 6 comments to reach that threshold. I'm not exactly sure why. I mean, Google, fix your systems here. People want to be able to live stream things and cater to their audience. This is the first, by the way, true live stream that I've ever actually performed here. I had one very brief test stream that I did some time ago. At the time, I got it kind of figured out, but I wasn't really sure exactly what I was doing. Now, I'll be right back very shortly. I need to get a drink. My throat is still scratchy because I'm still getting over my cold. I don't want to lose my voice during the live stream before the moon actually starts bleeding like a block of Munster cheese. So I'm going to get some grape juice, probably get a snack or something like that. Everyone else is doing it. Everyone's probably gathered around here with bowls of popcorn and, barbecue ribs and stuff. I want in on that action. I want to get some, at least an apple or something like that. So I'll be right back. I would have like a BRB screen. I wonder if that can be done. I'm assuming it can, but I don't have time to set it up because I'm already broadcasting. So I'll probably write on a slip of paper BRB for the next time that I have to BRB. But for those of you who are already viewing, you already know I'll BRB because you can hear me right now, apparently. So I'll BRB. Peace out for the next minute or two. All right, YouTube, I am now back with a glass of water, back on the live stream here. But first, I need to light some incense because I do that almost every night. I figure it's an appropriate occasion. What the hell? Some occult stuff going on. Moon's turning to blood. There's no reason not to. So momentarily here, I'll get some lavender incense and I'll be good to go. You'll probably even be able to see it in the webcam, actually. All set. Now, as to the spiritual side of the blood moon tetrad, I know I was away for a minute here. For anyone who's just joining, I had to step out for a drink, basically. I think we should probably talk about the concept of the egregore, specifically because I use a page on 4chan called Politically Incorrect. I used to use X, which is the paranormal page there. I switched to politically incorrect because I realized most of the relevant spiritual discussion that goes on there, that isn't either a bunch of creepypasta, which is I mean, it's entertaining. There's nothing wrong with creepypasta. It's just usually not based on authentic occultism, any authentic spiritual path. It's really like comparing a Ouija board to a medieval grimoire when you really think about it. I abandoned the paranormal page there when I realized that most of the relevant spiritual discussion was taking place on a page that isn't even dedicated to that purpose. It's really become the new random page when you think about it. It's really become the more multi-purpose page. Yes, there's an obvious political bias there. Yes, there are trolls there. Yes, there are people who shitpost. I've shitposted there myself, but at the same time, the relevant spiritual discussion has leaked in there, because I think what ended up happening is that the real occultists, those that were actually practicing some sort of authentic magic, filtered in there because of the larger audience realizing that they could make use of the larger core of people for their ritualism. This is what I'm presuming happened. I happen to be one of the people who made that migration over time, when most of the other boards really became nonsense. Now, if you know a little bit of the backstory behind the popular character, meme-worthy, very much so, Ebola-chan, you can get a pretty good view of what the concept is behind this specific style of occultism. It ties into my sonic works, the music that I've made. Every single song is a form of occult ritual. It's a sonic ritual. It's simply, imagine an invocation that is in musical form. That's really what it is. When other people listen to that material, they're participating in the occult ritual. Their energy is being drawn. You know, it's not going back at the person who's listening to it. To them, it's predominantly just music. But it's being used in that format. Let me get a drink here. But anyway, the concept of the egregore figures into the blood moon a little bit, and it's a little bit of backstory to explain exactly why. Ebola-chan was essentially just an anime character that happened to have or give Ebola to people, and was made by a bunch of anime fans. That's really all it was at first. It was something that was funny. It got turned into a meme, and people found it amusing. At some point, though, occultists got a hold of this and decided it was a great idea to try to proselytize this then non-existent Ebola-worshipping cult across all of 4chan, and indeed elsewhere. It made its way to basically every corner of the internet. And people took it seriously enough so that it actually became its own self-styled occult ritual of sorts. Now, fast forward a little bit to only a little while ago, and they've done the same thing regarding the refugee crisis. You see that the people at Politically Incorrect, tend to be, we would say, conservatives, moralists, traditionalists. There's National Socialism there. And so generally speaking, they're against refugees. They don't like the Islamic immigration into Europe. I happen to agree with that. I think for my own reasons, I believe that Europe needs to protect its borders a little more effectively, at the very least. You know, protect its cultures a little bit more effectively. In the case of this happening with the Syrian refugee crisis, they've made another one, which is almost exactly the same as Ebola-chan, that they now call Winter-chan, which is basically the same principle. It's this cute anime girl that happens to be imbued with various sort of pagan sigils and things of that nature. And it's the same exact purpose. It's an occult ritual that's making its rounds on the internet as we speak. Fast forward even more, and what is being done now is an attempt to essentially, if you know anything about ISIS and their actions at Palmyra, the Temple of Baal there, Baal with the apostrophe, not the local Baal as in just the guardian spirit of any particular city-state, but the big Baal, the big head demon, also Beelzebub later on, as the Solomonic cycle would talk about. They are attempting to revive this deity through the use of these thought forms and egregores, and having success at doing so, it seems. When ISIS began attacking these pagan ruins, they began unleashing energy that had lain dormant for many thousands of years in some cases, or at the very least centuries. It's a very dangerous thing to do. There's a reason you don't walk on the graves. It doesn't matter to me whether people believe this or not. But now they are attempting to use the sort of blood moon. If you look at some of the symbols associated with this specific deity, there's almost always a crescent moon in there. Some people have asked me what my occult symbol represents, and I have to answer in two parts. The first is it represents nothing. It's just sort of a symbol that I've stylized over time that I developed when I was in high school. I was still a Christian at the time. I wasn't even involved in the occult. On the other hand, though, when I look at the symbol now, I realize that it's astonishingly similar to some of the symbols that are used in sort of the horned god religious groups throughout time in paganism, to the worship of Baal, Beelzebub, to some of these other symbols. I've had others that I've spoken to. I won't talk specifically about who this was. I had somebody in a relatively high position confide in me that the symbol was almost identical to one that was in use back, several decades ago by an entirely different, much larger occult order than anything that I'm used to dealing with. And that this symbol apparently, it wouldn't be in the public. Most people probably haven't seen it. So I'm not exactly sure what all that's about. I also don't expect everyone to believe me when I say that. I'm ambivalent to such things. But there is an attempt going on right now to revive these pagan energies, to combat what is generally seen as the decadence of the Western world, to bring about a European revival, a Western revival, a revival of what they would term the cradle of modern civilization, which is the Americas and Europe, essentially, and to sort of combat what they see as a degenerated spiritual energy, which really comes from Abrahamism. And so to them, that's really what this blood moon represents. Now, you don't have to put any stock into it. You can say, well, the moon is turning red because the sun happens to be on the other side of the earth. Ta-da, that's the end. But as I've spoken of with my self-fulfilling prophecy video, when enough people or a group of people believe in something, they tend to at least attempt physically to make it true throughout time. So what we've got to be aware of is that there are people in this world that are performing quite literal occult rituals around this tetrad. There are people in Judaism that are expecting their Mosiach. They're expecting the Mosiach very quickly. I can't remember the name of that one rabbi who said that shortly after Ariel Sharon died, their Mosiach would come. Well, Sharon died some time ago. They're expecting the hundreds of thousands of people that adhere to that very literalistic and somewhat mystic interpretation of Orthodox Judaism. They are waiting for the Messiah right now. They are fully aware of the prophecies. Kaduri, that was the name of the rabbi. They are awaiting what they call the Mosiach. Now, most Christians, oddly enough, don't even understand this. They think, well, Jesus was the Messiah. Whoever comes next is the Antichrist. What they're overlooking, the Protestants that believe in Revelation literally, what they're overlooking is that the Jews are still awaiting their Messiah. If the Antichrist, according to the Protestants, comes, the Jews are going to declare him the king of the world. They don't even seem to fully comprehend this fact. They haven't read enough, I guess, of their own scripture to understand it. With the tetrad cycle, essentially what we're looking at is a harbinger of change. This is what it represents to me. It doesn't represent the rebirth of a pagan deity in any specific sense to me, although paganism is reawakening. We look at Iceland. They just built their first pagan temple in centuries. It's there for the Asatru Folk Assembly. I have one of their works, by the way. It's actually rather interesting. I'm not a member of their order, but they produce some good literature. For a bibliophile like me, it's rather interesting to look at the word hoard manuscript that they actually, I believe, produced, although it may have been a different manuscript which they made. Actually, I believe it was Can We Still Say God? Although that may have been a different Odinist group. Sometimes I get them confused. I have several booklets on paganism from sort of these New Age orders. To me, the tetrad merely represents change. And it's exactly the same as my explanation for the Mayan calendar. When it came, I made a video and I told people I'm not worried about the world suddenly ending. I realize that some people are taking this literally. But I also realized first they were getting the date wrong. That was obvious because they weren't accounting for the final, not back ton, but the smaller count after the back ton hadn't cycled around on December 21st. They had to wait until the next December anyway. So the first thing was their date was a year off almost. It was 360 days off. And for another thing, the Mayans never literalistically interpreted it as being anything regarding the end of the world in a physical sense. They used metaphor. It's all a metaphor. When they talk about the world was destroyed this many times and it's being destroyed this time by a black rain or something, they're not talking in a literal sense, as in a literal void of black rain comes down and the world is physically, literally ripped apart. That's not what was being meant. It's a calendar. It's a count of time. It's also circular. They didn't represent it as a line. The Westerner represents time as a line. It has a definitive beginning, or sort of goes on in a line forever in that direction. And it has a definitive end usually. It's a line. It's continuous. You can't deviate from that one linear course. It's not circular. It does not cycle. That's not the way that the Mayans represented it. It's also not the way that any of these other pagan groups ever represented it. They never represented time as a line. The Ouroboros, which is on the occult symbol that I use for my own works, the snake eating its own tail, it's a circle. It's a cycle. In fact, the two words sound a lot alike for a very good reason. It simply goes around and around. It may change over time, but there is no definitive actual end. Certain Eastern groups represent it in much the same way. My one piece of advice, though, for the Western audience is you're never going to fully comprehend how the Easterner sees time. Probably fruitless to bother trying, just as they would never fully comprehend what you mean when you look at time as being a straight line from a definitive beginning or an undefined beginning to some definitive end goal. It just doesn't figure into the philosophies there. It doesn't make any sense. You can't translate the two meanings between the two general regions of culture because they're never going to understand one another. So when Westerners, with their beliefs in a specific end times, usually informed by Christianity, sometimes informed by Islam or Judaism, when they attempt to apply that reasoning to any sort of pagan prophecy or occult material that doesn't come strictly out of Abrahamism and is purely Abrahamic, it's not influenced by any outside Eastern order or pagan order from the New World or pagan order from Africa or certain European pagan orders, they're going to come to the wrong conclusions 100% of the time. They're simply not going to understand what the fuck they're talking about because they're looking at time totally differently. That would be my advice to people. If you want to talk about prophecy, you have to understand the difference between these two discrete systems. The system that I believe in is more of a spiral or a branch. That is, I do not believe in determinism. There was a time when I did. I flirted with determinism. I finally determined that it was wrong. That's my belief now. I look at it differently. I don't look at there as being any specific end. I also don't look at it as being singular. I base this on my understanding of certain theoretical physical aspects of the universe. So you can see it's quite complicated. When we talk about the blood moon and all of the different prophecies and expectations that people have, there are people that are expecting, right now as you, the listener, are tuned into this live stream, there are people in this world right now at this very moment that are expecting Jesus to descend tonight or in the next few days. I've seen them talk on YouTube. I've heard their sermons. They expect that the end times are not just the non-committal, oh, well, it's coming soon. Oh, well, we're close to Armageddon. It's not like that. You get that every once in a while from all Christian congregations. Oh, we're living in the end times. Obviously, because look, gay marriage is legal. Not like that. They're expecting it quite literally soon, as in not, oh, well, it might happen shortly, like in a decade or so. They're expecting it like tonight. I mean, they're expecting that if any of them are watching this stream, they would expect Jesus to suddenly descend out of the cloud. That little tiny blue dot, by the way, below the moon is actually reflected light. It has absolutely that's not Jesus descending there. I know some people probably thought that it was. I promise you that it's not Jesus, because if I move the webcam, then Jesus suddenly moves hundreds of miles through the sky. That would be quite a talent for Jesus to have. I don't even know, where does he even say that he had the ability of flight? Satan flies him around. Satan flies him to the top of the temple. He doesn't do it under his own power. Maybe he was just possessed after all. So it's very complicated. I know I'm going off and rambling a bit. I don't even know how long I've been on this stream, actually, because it doesn't have a timer or anything like that. But there you go. And so, fairly soon, in the next, I don't know the exact time, I'm not sure, Eastern time, when it is supposed to turn red. I'm actually going to look out the window because it might already be turning like brown on one side right now, and I wouldn't necessarily see it. You see, you're potentially seeing a more clear picture. I think it's actually lower quality on mine. So let me crane out the window momentarily and tell you what I see here. Investigate a bit. Let's see. Oh yeah, the eclipse is beginning on the left side of the moon. Let's see. Is there any way for me to... Let's see. Oh, is this a reversed picture? Yep, see, you can see right there. It has begun. Oh, that's much better. It has begun, my friends. Baal is being born. The devil is coming. At least according to the end timers. You know, it's going to take him a while. See, the moon is giving birth to him. The moon's pregnant right now. You can see him starting to move around inside of the womb of the moon, but it's going to take Baal a while to actually get out of the moon, and that little tiny blue ball is the same piece of reflected light. That's not a UFO or Nibiru. Before anybody makes any stupid comments about Nibiru, I am tired of hearing about that. I've heard since the Clinton era about how supposedly Planet X was behind the moon or behind Jupiter or on the other side of the galaxy hurtling towards us, and how pretty soon all life on Earth would be extinguished. Never happened before, not happening now. Nibiru does not exist. They said, oh, now we think Nibiru is a brown dwarf. Well, which is it? Is it a planet? Is it a brown dwarf? Is it a black hole? Is it a big asteroid hurtling towards us? Please enlighten me, because every year you make the same predictions. I chuckle about them and say, okay, see you next year. And lo and behold, the videos are all taken down after their prediction is proven wrong. Should really start downloading these videos and re-uploading them when it's proven that they're a bunch of charlatans. It's just like Pat Robertson or any of these other people. I already explained. For those who are just joining, I've been ranting for some time here about the spiritual implications of the tetrad, and before that, some of the sort of specific prophetic groups that are involved really with the end times beliefs of the tetrad. People, again, for those who are just tuning in, some people thought asteroid was going to hit near Puerto Rico or in the Atlantic, wipe out most or all life on the planet. The Mormon Church did have to address the issue because some of its congregants, some of the rural, small-town Utah congregants were attempting to stockpile goods. They were building, like, I guess, fallout shelters. It started to worry other people within the Mormon Church, and so they decided they had to put out a statement, I think, a couple of days ago saying it's the church's position that this means nothing. Some people assumed, I guess, that the Mormons had inside information. The church fathers swear that they don't know anything about Nibiru or any of these other things. So, yeah. And remember, the Messianic Jews are awaiting their Messiah. They are priming their various red heifers to be slaughtered. They are going to try to rebuild the temple. When it does, shit will hit the fan. War will probably begin in the Levant region when they attempt to do this, but they're not doing it yet. There is a call by the Palestinian. This is what's got people a little bit scared. There is a call right now by the Palestinian Authority's president, Mahmoud Abbas. He has said that there is the possibility that there is another intifada going on in Jerusalem. If that happens, all hell could break loose in the city of Jerusalem. That is true. Israel and Syria have been trading fire for several days. Israel has fired material into Gaza. Gazans have fired material into Israel. But I think we've got to remember something. If the world culture was predominantly Hindu or predominantly Buddhist, we wouldn't see this in a prophetic light. You see, a lot of people, even those like myself who aren't Christians, Muslims, or Jews, because we were reared in a Christian, Islamic, or Jewish culture or subculture, we tend to give this weird extra importance to Israel. The only extra importance I can give to that general region is that in turn it is given importance by those various groups that happen to hold power in most of the nuclear states. Most of the very powerful militaries are run by groups that they're secular, but they're essentially Christian, or they're Islamic, or they're religiously Christian, or they're Jewish. Israel happens to be a Jewish state. There are a lot of Jewish individuals in the U.S. Congress. Russia's run by Orthodox Christians largely. Britain, the church there is a Protestant church. Some of the other powers, they're run by Catholicism. Well, all of these different groups have their different competing theories about what the Middle East really means, about who should control Jerusalem, who should run that land, what should it be called, what should its borders look like. And so there is always the possibility of violence. We've been seeing it. It's been flaring up since the 1940s in the region. It's nothing new. Now, the fact that we happen to have a Jubilee tetrad doesn't really fundamentally change the fact that, yes, occasionally missiles will fly over and into and out from Israel. It's been happening for a very long time. It's unfortunate. I feel very sorry for people that have to live in that region of the world. I'm not just talking about the Palestinians. Yes, they're oppressed. I feel sorry for the Israelis too. They have to face exactly the same shit on a day-to-day basis. The Lebanese do. Look at what's happening in Syria. The poor Syrians, millions of them have fled. I do feel sorry for them. I don't think they all need to flee to Europe. And I think we should allow Putin to steamroll ISIS and restore order to the area. Now, fuck it. Let Putin deal with it. If he's willing to do so and expend his manpower and expend his ammunition doing so. The Russians, they don't care as much about human rights. They're not going to, take a bunch of ISIS people and put them in a prison camp and pay for them for 10 years. They're just going to execute them on the field. So be it. It'll be more effective in the long term, I guess. I'm going to have a look at the moon very briefly here. For those of you who are just joining me here, joining this stream, group chat is still open. There are over 600 people viewing this feed right now, and I don't know if anybody can actually participate in the group chat. Maybe there's something that I'm supposed to be pressing here. Let me look at this very quickly. Let's see. Exactly. I don't quite understand this. Google has such an arcane system for such a streamlined, effective company that releases a search engine that makes so much sense, a browser that, I don't use it. I don't use Chrome. I use Firefox, but is said to be generally easy to use and sensible. Why can't they get live streaming right? It just doesn't make any sense to me. I'm not sure if anyone else can participate in the live chat. If I press this button, it actually goes away, and now there's no chat there. And now the chat's back, but I don't think anyone else can actually type there. So I'm going to take a look at the moon here really quickly, and then I'll BRB. The left side of the moon is currently turning red, but unfortunately, I believe this is reversing my picture. Now let's see if I can actually stop that from happening. Webcam options, advanced settings. We'll see if this actually opens. Mirrored orientation. See, now you're seeing what I'm seeing. I apologize for that. For some reason, it was mirroring the image even though the image was supposedly correctly oriented. That's very strange, actually. I need to take a look at my webcam. Maybe that's like backwards on my program or something. I'm not really sure. I am generally tech literate, but I'm not the most tech literate person. And I don't have a great deal of skill with live streaming because I've only conducted one test before. Now, I'm going to be back in a minute. The moon is currently moving into eclipse. You can see it on the left side. It is eclipsing, but it's going to be quite a while before it's fully eclipsed, and that full eclipse will last for quite a while. So don't worry, you're not going to miss out on anything. I'm presuming that this stream will stay up as a video long after the stream is done. At least that's my understanding of it anyway. So I will be right back. Give me a minute or two. I need to get another drink. Like I said, some of you know, I am getting over a cold right now, and we just hit 700 viewers. That's actually quite a few. That's a lot more than I expected to join us here. I'm going to get a drink because I'm just getting over a cold, and if I continuously talk and I don't have water, my throat will get very dry, and I'm going to start, I don't know, sounding like Shania Twain with a head cold. So it's just not going to work out. Trust me, it won't be pretty. It won't be pretty at all. So I'm going to be right back very briefly. Give me a minute or two, and I'll BRB. I have returned to YouTube. Oh, we're getting up towards 800 viewers now. I think people probably want me to rant some more. Gotta get some water. Unfortunately, gotta blow my nose here. At least you don't have to watch it. Still sick. Slightly, anyway. Take a look at the moon. Yeah, you can see it starting to turn sort of a brownish reddish color on the left side. I'm going to move the webcam into a better position. There, nice and centered. But you can see the slight reddish tinge on the left side. For those for whom the slew stream isn't working, I know I've had problems with that site in the past myself. This may be, I guess, the best thing that you can actually access. And of course, for my subscribers, you get to, I guess, listen to me rant about spiritual topics. But let me do a bit of multitasking here for a moment. Yeah, let's see, check that. Yeah, I get that. Yeah, the live stream is currently live on Google+. Okay. But anyways, for those of you, again, who are just joining us, I was speaking about the spiritual and physical implications of this event beyond just being an eclipse, because, of course, it's interesting. Eclipses aren't rare, but they're not exactly all that common. If you live in an area like I do, in New England, northern New England, what do you know about the weather? It's cloudy 250 days a year. So I didn't get to see the last 3 blood moons. I've never seen one before in my life. I never got to see them because 2 of those times it wasn't visible here, and the time that it was, unfortunately, it was in the middle of a rainy day. So I didn't get to see the blood moons before. This is the first one that I've seen, which is the most auspicious one, because on the previous blood moons, nobody really predicted anything. No, you didn't have megachurch pastors coming and saying the world is ending Jesus is returning soon. But again, tonight, on this very night, and into the 28th, there are people that are expecting the world to come to an end by asteroid, by multiple asteroids in some cases. Jesus comes back, lays waste to the world. Something happens, nuclear war breaks out, Armageddon in general, epidemic comes. They did that with Comet Ison. At the time, when Ison came around, I wasn't convinced that anything was going to happen, but I did make a token video pointing out that it did have a strange numbered connection to a previous comet which coincided with the plague which hit Austria during the Renaissance, or I believe just prior to the Renaissance. That was rather interesting. But then again, it's basically just numerology. The only connection of numerology to this is that it happens to be coinciding with these Jewish feast days, which is disputed. I've heard some people say it doesn't quite coincide. Other people have said, yes, it's exact. They've looked back at other tetrads or other blood moons. They've likened it to the 6-Day War, to the retaking of Jerusalem by Israel, to attempts to partition the state of Israel, and really for the Protestants, the ones that brought this up in the first place and made it about Armageddon, the fear-mongering, the megachurch pastors specifically, not the mainline Protestants. For them, it's all about Israel. I made my video Cuckservatives. These are people who are moral traditionalists. They're very Christian, but at the same time, for them, all spiritual aspects of the world around us have something to do, really, with the nation of Israel, especially insofar as they relate to politics or anything of an astronomical nature. It's actually rather strange to watch. The funny thing is that I pointed out, though, is this. A lot of these very, 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 very religious Protestants, the megachurch pastors, the ones that at least pretend to be hyper-religious, we're talking the ones that baptize people constantly, that talk a great deal about the blood of Jesus and repentance, and they're very, generally speaking, they're very much against gay marriage, they're very much against abortion, they're usually Republicans, or they just say conservative. They don't necessarily endorse a candidate. These same people that are so religious and so concerned with Jesus and God, the Christian God, that is, of course, whenever something like this happens, do they start talking about Jesus and redemption and forgiveness and mercy and God's tenderness and all this stuff? Or are they talking about the different ways in which mankind can be crippled or destroyed? The latter. They're talking about the end times, and they fixate upon the specific ways in which mankind may be devastated. Oh, well, there's going to be a megaquake. Well, there's a swarm of asteroids is coming. Something like that. This is what they talk about. And the only Christian, I think, on all of YouTube that covers conspiratorial content, astronomical material, and so forth, that has pointed this out is Thor News. Thor News. If you don't know the channel, make sure to look up Thor News. He's very entertaining. He has a very long intro to all of his videos, which is kind of a little bit strange. Very obvious Texan accent. He's a very funny person, and he has my respect, because he alone has pointed out what others outside of Christianity have pointed out for some time. A lot of these people that are very religious, they don't talk a lot about Jesus and God. They like the Bible, generally speaking, does, the New Testament. They talk mostly about Satan and Armageddon and destruction and how people will be tortured and depraved and killed by Armageddon, how they'll be tormented forever by God. They're sort of the fire and brimstone counterpart to those that are really talking about how Jesus loves people and so forth. And those are the sort of people, I think it was Hagee, who, as progenitors, wrote the books that are sort of leading up to this tetrad, and how, oh, these moons fall on Jewish feast days, so the end times are coming. Well, I don't expect the end times to come, and now we're near 1,000 viewers, so I should probably explain again briefly why. I see the tetrad as simply a harbinger of change. I said the same thing about the Mayan calendar when that came around for several reasons. I do not see it as the herald of the end times. Although I think it would be funny if it was. If the Atlantic Ocean gets hit by a 10-mile wide asteroid and all of humanity is destroyed, well, you know, who cares? I'm going to die someday anyway. And I find it very funny that these people who are so religious that they constantly talk about, I know where I'm going when I die. You're the one that doesn't know. I'm so secure in the Lord. These are the same people who are fixating upon the belief that the world is about to end either tonight or in the next few weeks. The people that are talking mostly about the economy, about the Shemitah or Jubilee, or about the economy alone, they, I think, above the other groups, may have it right. And let me tell you why. I've been predicting for years that China was going to have massive problems. It's already showing those problems earlier than I thought they would. The economy there has already been crippled. People don't even realize it. The only reason that they have a stock market right now is that they're injecting so much funny money into it. They're like quantitative easing that we're doing here in the United States. It's like that on steroids. They've thrown all of their pensions into it. The pensions are completely gone. They're worthless at this point. What do you think is going to happen in China when people realize this? So the people that are predicting that this is sort of the beginning date of the ultimate collapse of the Chinese economy or the US economy or the world economy or some combination thereof, they may be right. Their prediction may turn out to be true. As far as the asteroid stuff, anything regarding Nibiru, Nibiru is a very old topic. RFID implants and martial law, no, I don't expect any of that to happen. Most of that's just a misunderstanding of biblical terminology anyway. People keep trying to tell me, by the way, and my subscriber Gary Owen, if you happen to be watching, I'll try to explain here for your benefit specifically why I don't agree with you on RFID chips. RFID chips are not actually necessary for the government to track you. I referred you to my previous video on this very subject. If the government wants to track what you do, then they'll just rely on the fact that you own a smartphone, because you probably carry it 99% of the time. They can track you through that. They don't care. They don't need to chip you. They don't need some mark of the beast system. You've already taken the mark of the beast if you believe in such things. You take the mark of the beast every time you use Facebook, every time you whip out your smartphone, and you're not a super hacker who's capable of preventing them from tracking you. So it's pointless to even really talk about that. And as for Nibiru, I've explained a couple times already for those who are just joining here. Nibiru does not exist. I know people want it to exist, but people have predicted that it's going to come smash into this solar system and destroy Earth for many years. We're talking. I can remember back in the early days of the Bush administration, people were talking about this, and it didn't happen. So again, pointless. It's just not going to happen, folks. If anything comes true here, it'll be the economic collapse, which, by the way, in terms of human misery, if they are right, it will probably be worse than an asteroid hitting the Atlantic Ocean and destroying all of mankind. If all of mankind is wiped out by a 2,000-foot wall of water that just completely obliterates everything in its path and rips you apart the second it hits you, you're dying basically a painless death. You're going to get knocked out from the force, and you won't even know that you're dead. If an economic collapse were to hit this world right now, with as many people that live in it as do, with the population density being as high as it is, you know how you're crying? You won't starve to death. You'll die of diarrhea. You'll get cholera. You will literally shit your organs out and lie in a pile of your own innards, and you will asphyxiate slowly on your lungs, and you will die. That's how you will go. The human misery of entering another sort of economic dark age with this level of population means you're going to die of some sort of disease. It will probably not be a fancy disease. You're not going to die in battle against some militant government force trying to institute martial law. You're not going to go out with guns blazing. You're going to go out with your ass blazing. That's what people need to understand about this. I know I'm off on a tangent again. I'm going to briefly look at the moon and see the progress of the eclipse, which I believe is about an hour away from a full eclipse. It's taking a long time. Sometimes eclipses are very short. This time it's more than an hour, actually. I believe that it's in full eclipse. But if you're looking at the stream, you can plainly see it looks like about half of the moon or a little bit less right now is blotted out. When it's fully blotted out, it should be very red. You probably can't quite see that yet because of lower contrast, but it should look very red when that comes to pass. So I'm going to very briefly look at the moon here, take another drink, probably get some more food, actually. I may do another BRB session at the same time. I've still got my incense burning, which is, it's just all good. I'm glad to see how many people are joining me here, over 1,100 people. That's I expected maybe 100 would be the peak. So honestly, I'm extremely happy about this. I appreciate it. I don't know how many of you are my subscribers and how many are not, but trust me, there'll be way more commentary because I think it's another hour before it's even hits full eclipse, and then after that, I think it's another hour before it ends. So this might be another 2 hours of live streaming, folks. This may be an epic rant of sorts. So I'm going to look at the moon again, get another drink, get a snack, and I'll be right back. Oh, actually, almost all of the moon has turned to blood here. I don't know why it's not quite showing up on there. Oh, actually, you can begin to see a little bit of the red on the live stream. Let me try refocusing this. Let me see if I can get this right in the center. I may be able to make this clear. I'm not exactly sure, though. I don't know whether that did it or not. Zoop. Oh, yeah, there's the moon, folks. It's just a big blue ball in the sky. I think that's better. You can see it is eclipsing now. Once the glow of the moon, the sort of white light on the other side is gone, it will appear red on the live stream. But it is eclipsing now. If you can go outside and you're in the visible zone, you will be able to see the moon, and with your naked eyes, about 3/4 of it is blood red right now, like literally. So I'm actually going to go very briefly outside. Maybe get a. No, I'm not going to bother getting a picture of it. I can just see it with my own eyes. But I do need some food here. If I'm going to talk for that long, I need some more sustenance. So for those of you who have just joined us, currently watching the eclipse of the moon, final blood moon, it is almost fully eclipsed. That full eclipse will last for quite some time. So expect at least another hour on this live stream. We'll probably go. We just hit 1,200 people. So I'm going to step out for a moment, get another drink, get some food, and I'll be right back. Keep each other entertained while I'm gone. Oh, we've now passed 1,300 viewers, and I am back. I had a quick snack, and I have some more water. Keep in mind, of course, my voice is a little hoarse here because I am slightly sick still. I'm going to take another quick look at the moon here because I think it's almost fully eclipsed now, and you should be able to see the nice red color when that little stripe of white goes away. So let me check its progress. It is roughly 90% eclipsed currently, so you will potentially be able to see its red luster very shortly. Probably another, I think 5 or 10 minutes really is what we've got left as far as when it's fully eclipsed. But that full eclipse is supposedly going to last about an hour, which is rather strange. I don't know how these things work because I've never really paid much attention to them before. For those of you who may not have seen my channel before, you can check out my other content. I've got a lot of material on the occult, spirituality, politics, current events, a little bit of everything. There's a poll just up, as well as straw poll about how people primarily found out about and keep watching the content on my channel. I'm going to take a quick breather here, and then I'll probably do some more commentary for, the next half hour, hour or so. Man, being sick really sucks, trust me, but it's better to get the flu now, suffer with it for a few days and get it out of the way rather than getting sick in a New England winter. Trust me, when you have to go out and shovel snow because a foot is falling every hour and you're sick, it's the most miserable thing you can possibly imagine. Imagine you're stuffed up, but then you're even more stuffed up because it's also 20 below out. And you're bundled up in 5 layers with a fever. It just doesn't work. New England is heaven during the summer. Spring and fall are really nice, but in winter, it's like living in an apocalyptic wasteland anyway. This is one reason, by the way, where I don't really care if the world ends tonight because of the blood moon. I'm not expecting that. For anyone who's just joining, I'm not predicting really anything's going to happen other than a possible economic collapse. That sort of makes sense, but that has nothing to do with the moon. But at the same time, if the world did end, if Jesus does come down and condemn all sinners and send me to hell or something, that's okay because I've already been there, because I've already lived through a New England winter. Trust me, it gets down to like 25, 30 below. Most people would freeze solid at that point. Talk to somebody from Florida or Mexico or something. They can't even understand how it can get that cold and people can survive it. So be that as it may. But for those who are just joining the stream, I'll restate this briefly again. My own feelings about this, it just signals a cycle of change, really in a cosmic sense, I suppose you could say. Not predicting any asteroids or Nibiru's or New World Orders or martial laws or anything like that other people are hawking. I think that a lot of what you hear about the blood moon tetrads was really started by these people writing books about how it meant Jesus was coming back, or it meant something was going to happen in Israel, which could happen. There's a lot of tension in that region. But then again, is that really abnormal? Do we really have to have some sort of prophecy detailing that there's going to be violence in a part of the Middle East? I think at this point, you would need a prophecy to say that there would be a day where there wouldn't be any violence really in the Levant region. People, I think, are used to seeing some of the more morbid characteristics of mankind at full play in the region. There are bombings there and missiles flying all the time. People are hijacking things. People are beating each other in the streets. It would be a strange day if it didn't happen somewhere in that general region. So I'm not exactly sure what these people are prophesying, but if it's more violent than that, it probably would be the end times, because you can't get much more violent than some of these places in the Middle East, Mesopotamia and the Levant specifically. It would be difficult to imagine that kind of life. For people who live in the West, I don't think they can even quite comprehend it for the most part. We're now nearing 1,500 people currently watching this live stream, and the last rays of the moon, of the moon's own reflective light, are beginning to wane, which means you're going to be left with a little red rusty blob here. I'm still going to attempt to focus this more. I'm not exactly sure why, This is not, let's see here. I've got advanced settings on this. This is a C920 webcam, so it's fairly high definition. But let's see if we can tweak this a little bit so you can see it a little bit more easily. What happens if we put the exposure up or something? Let's take this off of auto. That's, well, oh, well, where's the moon? Well, that'll help you see it a little bit better. Maybe not quite on that high a setting. That helps. No, that makes it basically go away. How do we... Oh, good. Ugh. I want to keep it in as real of color as possible here. Play with the contrast a bit. Yeah, keep that on the same color intensity. That'd work. Oh, well, yeah, that helps. Now you can sort of see that brownish color. See, that's more what I'm seeing at the moment. There's a very, very faint sliver of light, maybe like less than 5% of the moon left lit on that side. And that's really all it's got. What's white balance? I don't even know. Oh, yeah, well, now the moon really is a drop of blood. That's actually closer to what I'm seeing too, oddly enough. So you are now essentially, here, I'm going to save that. That's a lot better, actually. I don't know why I didn't fiddle with that before. You can see the moon is red. That's basically what I'm seeing outside. Perhaps a little bit more dim than that, but there's maybe 5% of the moon is not reddish at the moment. Really, when you think about it, I need to reposition this again, actually, because the moon moves, and thus the picture is no longer quite centered. Perfect. So there you have an almost complete blood moon eclipse. I think there are, again, a few minutes still until its peak. And then I believe the peak eclipse lasts about an hour, during which it will still be red. Or I may be wrong. It might peak and then very quickly decline, and it takes an hour for it to go back to normal, or it may be that it stays at that peak for an hour before it begins to decline. I didn't really understand some of the terminology on the pages trying to describe this. A continuous problem. There are two problems with such astronomical things that I've seen on the internet. The first is that most of the sites that live stream them have issues with people, someone's browser doesn't work, they've got some add-on that's blocking it, yada, yada, yada. That's the first problem. The second problem is time zones. I don't like time zones. I want these sites to list where something is going to appear in the sky at specific times in each zone. What's the Eastern Standard Time? It doesn't help me if I know when the blood moon's going to occur in the time zone of Bhutan or Nepal or something like that. It just doesn't really help me because I don't live there. And then some of these nations, of course, they have their own little enclave time zones. North Korea was on the same time zone as Japan. They moved in an hour just despite the Japanese, actually, a few weeks ago, which I'm sure they're not watching the live stream anyway, though. They're not even able to see it. And they'll never see it, unfortunately, because they don't have access to the wider internet. It's really a bad thing. Kim Jong-un should be ashamed of himself. He should be more of a fan of astronomy. At least hook him up with the Siêu feed. It'll work for some of them, at least. They're basically using rip-off Macs over in North Korea. We're now headed up towards 1,800 viewers. That's rather surprising. Honestly, I didn't expect anywhere. I explained I expected maybe 100 people would tune into the stream, and it's just continuing to rise. It's actually rather strange. I don't know if my commentary is helpful or not, though, because the group chat, again, either isn't working for some reason, or I'm looking at something wrong here, or I haven't enabled something and people can't do the group chat. I don't know what it's Greek to me. I've never really used G+. I just use my YouTube page standalone and just sort of upload stuff and watch stuff on there. For those of you who are just joining, though, I do not expect Jesus to suddenly come out from behind the moon and descend from the sky and start killing sinners. Hopefully, if he does, though, he'll come and kill me first, because I think that would be entertaining. First casualty of the bronze-skinned Jesus, with his sword coming out of his mouth. There was one YouTuber, this is actually rather funny, that I saw about a week ago talking about CERN and Nibiru and the New World Order, all this stuff, but generally about the tetrad itself and about sort of martial law and collapse and things. This He was a Christian. He was saying a bunch of weird stuff about being part of secret orders and waging, holy war for Jesus and stuff. And he said something very funny. And this, I think, explains why I don't take some of these conspiracy theories seriously. Some of them make more sense than others. JFK, UFOs, I'm all for that. Some don't make as much sense, and we just passed 2,000 viewers. Holy shit. He said that Jesus was going to return during the last moon of the tetrad, essentially. And the Pope was in the U.S. to take refuge with the political elite here because he would be safe in their bunkers, I guess, as opposed to those that would exist in the Vatican. You'd think their bunkers would be better with all the money they've got, honestly, but apparently not. And that the UN was going to use nuclear weapons to try to destroy the descending Jesus. Essentially, what I guess he was saying was Jesus would descend during the tetrad, and the UN would very quickly deploy nuclear weapons to try to destroy Jesus. Now, I'm not sure what part of the Bible he was reading specifically to come to this conclusion, or whether it was just some really weird Bible. I wrote my own satirical nonfiction Bible, available on Amazon for anyone who wants to look for it. Just look up the nonfiction Bible. I like to think that that makes more sense than what he was saying. Because even there with a giant Reagan wooden dummy attacking Janis Joplin and Jim Morrison and John Lennon, even that probably makes a little bit more sense than the story that he told. And he claimed, oh, he had inside information. Then, of course, I checked his channel, and what else did I find there? Oh, colloidal silver cures AIDS. Oh, here's how to build an engine that runs solely on water for your car. I got used to that sort of revelation about the content that people were making. Henry Macau did the same thing. You look at Henry Macau, he's from the Save the Males site. He pretends to know all the inner dealings of the Illuminati and the Zionists and all of these groups that he claims are trying to take over the world. But if you look at the ads running on his site, they're mostly for things like iodine, colloidal silver, these other remedies that they're not mentioned anywhere in any herb lore I ever studied. I'm an occultist. I'm supposedly a really superstitious person. I don't believe in all this crap. So I just don't get it all the time, honestly. I'm going to check on the moon outside really quick here out the window. I'll be back in like 10 seconds, but with my naked eyes, so to speak, to see if that little white sliver there, I don't know if that's a glitch on the webcam or whether the moon is not quite in full eclipse. So let me quickly check. Yeah, the moon's pretty red, very, very close to its final form here. Some people, I should probably relate this funny story as well, because if there are over 2,000 viewers here, most of you didn't hear it the first time. If you've ever been to 4chan's Politically Incorrect, they're attempting to summon Baal. Big Baal with the big B, not with the little b, not a city guardian sort of spirit, but a major pagan and sometimes generally demonic deity to which people were sacrificed in antiquity. They're trying to summon Baal, actually, during this tetrad, specifically because they believe that ISIS has cursed itself by attacking Palmyra, which was a site dedicated to Baal. And so they're trying to use various chaos magic and incantations and egregore sort of stuff to raise this pagan spirit from these ruins in order to curse either ISIS itself or the Middle East in general, or even all of Islam, and took great comfort, actually, in the various disasters that happened at Mecca recently. ISIS getting leishmaniasis, some of the Africans getting Ebola shortly after the tombs were attacked in Mali, the pagan tombs dating back centuries. This was found very strange. It seemed to be an example of synchronicity to some occultists, and they seized upon it. And now I wouldn't be surprised if Winter Chan and Ebola Chan are joined by Baal Chan or something along those lines, or Beelzebub Chan. It doesn't really matter. See, another thing people need to understand when they think about all these pagan names, really most of the demons from latter days, when you're talking about Renaissance era or medieval magic, Most of those are just sort of transmogrifications of the names of pagan deities. Baal becomes sort of Beelzebub or Beelzebub. Ammon Ra becomes Ammon from the Grand Grimoire. I mean, the Ars Gotia. It happens over and over again because the Christians, Islamists, and Judaists all did the same basic thing, which is they took the demons of other civilizations around them that they encountered, not demons in the evil sense, and they made them evil. You can even look at this in Genesis within the Bible, the first book of the Hebraic works within the Old Testament. They do the same thing. A lot of that's adapted from Sumerian lore, from the Epic of Gilgamesh. If you read the Epic of Gilgamesh, you'll see. Oddly enough, though, at least one of the stories in there really more closely approximates sort of the stories of Haruman from, not Haruman. Who was Haruman's consort within Hinduism? Haruman sort of was the ally of one of these various avatars going around slaying demons and stuff. It really resembles one of those stories more than it does the story in Genesis. Complete aside, has nothing to do with the moon, but I figured people would enjoy the commentary here. So the moon is almost completely eclipsed here. You can see that's the color that I'm seeing. I had to fiddle with my webcam, but that's essentially the color that it appears to my naked eyes. It's a sort of deep rusty brown, almost reddish color, and there's just a tiny faint sliver that's not eclipsed yet. It's actually quite a sight to behold. If you can look out your window and see it, you should probably just do that. It makes a lot more sense if you do, because it's going to be a more spectacular view. For those who can't, though, if it's cloudy where you are, if it's stormy, if you're out of the viewing area, which is sort of centered on the North Atlantic, anywhere else, go ahead and watch it here. There's also a SLOOH feed, SLOOH, but theirs does not necessarily work for everybody. Unfortunately, some browsers and certain browsers with certain add-ons do not actually work with SLOOH. I don't know exactly what blocks it. I have NoScript and I have Ghostery. Ghostery wouldn't block. I'm assuming it's NoScript. I use that for privacy concerns. It does have problems, though, sometimes with dealing with certain streams, and then I have to configure it over and over and over again. So you can see the moon here. I need to move this actually again because the moon keeps moving in the sky. I wish it would just stay put. It would be so much easier. You can see. Let me, yeah, see, that takes it out of focus. The moon is not very bright, actually, when it's eclipsing like this. The amount of light hitting it is actually rather small, so it's darker than it normally is. It just happens to have a reddish color. What's happening is the sun is on the other side of the Earth, and so the only light right now hitting the moon is going around the Earth, getting sort of bent, and you're getting the red color. Normally, the moon, of course, appears more of a whitish, slightly blue color. Not tonight, though. Tonight, it's turned to Munster cheese. Running joke there. Get a piece of Munster cheese. If you're having grilled cheese, I suggested people have tomato soup because it's red and it's tasty. If you're having grilled cheese with it, use Munster cheese. Not only is it the tastiest, screw cheddar, and American cheese and milk cheese suck completely. Use Munster. It's so much better for a grilled cheese sandwich. It's also red on the outside when the block is cut. I'm going to take a really quick break here because my voice is starting to get scratchy again. Probably while I'm gone, that little white sliver will disappear and you'll be left with a little red blob. And that is the blood moon. It will be in full eclipse very shortly. I do not know the exact time it's supposed to come into full eclipse. I mean, I'm not sure. I can't get a straight answer from any of these websites. But for the 2,257 of you that are currently watching, I will be right back because I need yet another drink. I am still getting over a cold. Therefore, my throat is very scratchy and dry. I've gone through a couple cups of water already, so I will return very shortly. All right, YouTube, you can now see, I believe we are in full eclipse currently. So the moon is blood. It has turned red. Rather unfortunate. Ball has been born. Let me do this really quickly before I return to any ranting here. Over 2,100 people currently tuned in to watch the moon drip with blood as Ball is slowly born. To anyone new to the stream, I have made no major predictions regarding this. This is not an apocalyptic end times themed sort of hangout. Although the economy could collapse at any time. That's very much the case. I think I hear a bat outside. Hopefully it doesn't fly in here and bite me and give me rabies, but that's all good. You know, I'm gonna die someday anyway. And if I check, it is now very, very close to its final eclipse. I think like one more minute or so. Actually, let me check if I can find a reliable source. That would be helpful for exactly what time it's supposed to hit full eclipse. Let me see. Because there were several sites mentioning specifically about it, but unfortunately they seem to disagree on exactly when it hits peak and how long that peak will last. Let me see here. Oh, that's no help to me whatsoever. Screw Yahoo. I should have known better. It's too bad that Yahoo sucks. Really like to use them as a browser instead of Google, considering Google keeps bowing before censorship. Timeanddate.com. Oh, this looks legit. Let's see. What is a blood moon? Lunar tetrad. Facts about the eclipse. Oh, what time exactly? Eclipse in progress. Ends in 2 hours, 51 minutes. Well, actually, it kind of ends before that because the more spectacular aspects of it being actually red, visibly red, what you would consider interesting to look at won't last nearly that long. People in the US will get front row seats. Well, yeah, or they can just live stream it. No need for eye protection. No, I thought that the moon was going to glow like the sun. Despite rumors the world will not end. Well, you can't be sure. Let's do my best Alex Jones here. Oh, we're not exactly sure what's going to happen. Blah, blah, blah. No offense to anyone who likes Alex Jones, but I think he's a shill. This isn't telling me exactly what time, but if this counter is correct, then probably in another hour or so, it'll actually be over. But it's basically fully eclipsed at the moment anyway. My throat is becoming rather dry. Unfortunately, I'm just getting over my flu. And so my voice is a little bit crackly, I'm sure. Doesn't sound necessarily as good as it always does. But then again, the basic point of this is just to look at the moon. So I don't really need to say anything in specific anyway. It's all good. But you can see quite clearly the moon is red. And I promise I did not alter the color. I did turn up the contrast and the gain a bit. specifically because it wasn't really showing up as much of anything before. This webcam is really high quality, but it's really better for things that are close, not things that are far away. I'm going to really quickly move the cam again so that the moon is more centered. You can see I've recentered it, I think, 4 or 5 times now. So it's definitely in motion as the moon's supposed to do. It hasn't come crashing into Earth yet. If it starts getting closer to the camera, I may start to randomly praise Baal or Moloch or something. Right now, though, it's not doing that. So let me reposition the camera here carefully so that it's centered. People can get the best view possible. Yeah, close enough. It's basically fully eclipsed at the moment. Let me take a look out the window actually at it with my naked eyes and try not to knock over my water glass. I don't even know exactly where I put it, but I definitely need it for talking this long. And yeah, I'm going to turn off my desk lamp here because that actually might help. Had it on, even though my keyboard lights up. Oh, that doesn't really affect the picture, but let's affect how it looks to my eyes. That matters too. Yeah, the moon is quite definitely turning to blood. Quite an auspicious time to be alive. Blood moons happen fairly regularly, although they're not common astronomical events. And again, for new viewers that haven't joined before, some people are claiming that tonight is like the end times or it's tomorrow. They can't quite get it right, though. A lot of people that were trying to detract from interest in the actual blood moon sort of prophetic stuff said, oh, well, it's going to happen on the 15th or the 23rd or something. See, they try to muddy the waters, basically. Now, I'm not predicting anything, again, but that was definitely what they appear to have been aiming for at the time. When they were making all of these other dates up, and then each one came and passed. And of course, they said, oh, well, look, these prophecies didn't come true. I mean, it's the same game, really, that the fearmongers play when they try to convince you that an asteroid's headed for Puerto Rico or something, which is basically what they're saying. So you get a pluritude, a large number, actually, of these different prophetic sort of things that converge on the same general time zone because different people sort of throw their different explanations as to what they think will happen on that specific date into the sort of a stew. Generally speaking, nothing happens. It merely is an interesting astronomical phenomenon. And it's definitely interesting. I mean, it's not every day that the moon looks sort of like it's slightly transparent, actually, when you look at it with the naked eye in sort of a brownish red color. Definitely not every day that it happens. It's more impressive, again, if you can look at it in person. For those who can't, this live stream is offered. I'm not going to keep the stream going throughout the entire eclipse because it's almost at its peak and will begin to wane on the other side at some point here. And a little ways into that, I'll probably end the stream so that I don't lose my voice because I make other videos on an almost daily basis. And I've got to protect my reputation for at least making some semblance of sense. I don't want to, sound like Alex Jones the next time, like I just sucked down 5 or 6 cigars in a row before the show. So, and for those of you who are watching as well, this is the first time that I've really live streamed an event, actually. So I hope people are enjoying it because I'm not sure about all the ins and outs of using a Google Plus Hangout. Really, I don't even know how to add other people to it. Although, I think something like that, like a roundtable occult discussion or something, might be of interest for people to watch at some point in the future. Like I said, when I talked about raising money through Patreon and put my link up, one thing I mentioned on there explicitly is I'd like to do something that's live, not necessarily on a fully regular basis, like a daily show or anything like that, but maybe like on weekends or something like that, have a Sunday show. It has to be Sunday, the Lord's Day, therefore also the best day for satanic stuff, pagan stuff. But it'd be interesting to do something like that. I've wanted to get into that for a while. I tried using Blog Talk Radio and their sites. It's got all these weird conditions on free users and stuff like that. So it's like, what's the point? And we are now, I believe, in a full eclipse. Let me take a look out the window again, but I think it's at its peak now. Yeah, basically. Oh, it's actually getting redder. If you look at it now that it's more fully eclipsed, it's actually turning more blood red. It's a little spooky there. Thankfully, Jesus has not come back yet. I can imagine to people in the ancient world that saw astronomical phenomena that didn't happen on a daily basis, they must have been shitting their pants. The moon suddenly turns red or it gets blotted out. The sun gets blotted out by the moon. Comet streaks through the sky and explodes over a nearby mountain, or a chunk of meteor falls from the sky flaming. Oh, it must have absolutely terrified him. That's probably where some of these religious beliefs came from in the first place. It's very funny. People in certain Protestant churches look at an event like this and say, "Oh well, harbinger of the end times, something Jesus is coming back, something like that." And then at the same time, if you go back, their religion may have originally been rooted in some other strange astronomical phenomena that went on. It's a little bit strange, a little bit ironic when you really think about it. But I am not predicting an asteroid hitting Puerto Rican waters, or epidemic or martial law or any of those things. Other people may think that those are going to happen on the 29th. I suppose we'll see if they were right or not. Really no way you can predict ahead of time. The problem with arguing with a prophetic sort of with a prediction that somebody makes is always that when you're saying it's not going to happen, they simply say, aha, so you're making a prediction too. You're sort of claiming the negative. It's a logical fallacy on their part, of course, but you're not going to be able to convince them of that when you really think about it. That's been a continual problem with such things. I need to reposition the webcam yet again, actually, to get it centered on the moon so you can actually see it. I'm still not sure if anyone's chatting in the group chat, or if I can't see it, or if it's just not available or anything like that. I'm really not sure. But I hope people are enjoying the feed, because the moon is quite red. It's Munster cheese. It's blood. It's insert something that's red here. I always find it funny. They call it the blood moon. Well, NASA doesn't really use that term, kind of infrequently. They say, oh, it's an eclipse. Why not call it the apple moon? It kind of looks red like an apple and it's round. Why does it have to be blood? Why isn't it the raspberry moon? Well, raspberries aren't the same color, but apple moon works. Strawberry moon, maybe. Deformed strawberry moon. Why not a pleasant thing like that? Why does it have to be blood moon? Oh, the answer is because people wrote books about the end times about it. Okay, I get it now. But it is peak eclipse right now. It is red. It is like blood. And therefore, people are hoping that Baal or Moloch is being born at this very moment, about to rip apart the Abrahamists' world, or that the world's ending in general. Jesus comes back, God comes down, whatever. There are a million different religions predicting a million different things. Most of them are some permutation of why do I care what color the moon is. It's really rather funny to watch people concerned about such things. But it's definitely there. It's definitely red. We can't say it enough. We have a lunar eclipse at this very moment. A lot of people are probably thinking more about football at the moment. Patriots destroyed whatever fucking team they were playing against. I don't keep up with football, really. Other people are like, who cares about epidemics and the end of the world? We've got the pigskin. But I guess I just never took up that line of reasoning in life. It didn't make too much sense to me. But here we have the bloody moon, which is certainly a sign that the end times have come. You're not supposed to tell fortunes from the sky, according to these religious Christians that are talking so much about the tetrad. But at the same time, the prophecies that they're making are based on astronomical things. That's another thing. It's an inconsistency. It's a little bit of a hypocrisy. If an occultist does it, if I were to start making predictions based on stellar phenomena, they would say, oh, well, this is some sort of witchcraft. This is evil sin. But if Abrahamists do it, suddenly it becomes okay because they're talking about Jesus. Of course, most of them aren't even really mentioning that except peripherally to the end times itself. I already said, for those who are just joining, a lot of these people, they talk a great deal about hell. and suffering and torment and the end times, and they talk relatively little about forgiveness or Jesus Christ or any of these things that they're really supposed to be fixating on according to their own book. But I've gotten used to such things over time from those who believe in such religious mythologies. But enough about religion. I've already covered, Jesus Christ, I've talked probably for about an hour about spirituality alone. Let's go back to the physical predictions that are being made by some of these groups, really briefly for those who didn't hear it the first time around when there were only like 200 people on the stream. Please excuse my cold. The Mormon Church came out and put out a statement saying they weren't predicting anything because some Mormons were going survivalist mode. Some people claimed an asteroid was going to hit in the Atlantic or specifically next to Puerto Rico and wipe out humanity, either partially or completely. Some people are expecting war to break out in Israel or some part of the Middle East. Some people are expecting an economic collapse. And it's this latter group that if I had to choose any of these groups that I sort of sided with, it would be the lattermost group because we see signs of that already happening. But the moon is at peak eclipse right now. It's red, and it will begin to decline at some point here. I'm going to, at least a few more times here, look out the window and sort of see with my own eyes what's going on. I know I'm sort of missing out on some of the action outside by hosting this stream, but that's a small price to pay, I guess, for the people that are interested in watching it. But I'm going to take a look at it. I want to see the moment that it begins declining on the other side as it begins to phase out of its eclipse. So I need to take a look right now, very briefly, out the window. Yeah, it's absolutely red. It's in literal full eclipse at this moment. I'm starting to get more and more hoarse. I think I'm going to take another brief break here and let my voice rest for the next 10 minutes or so. For those who are here, I'm assuming mostly subscribers who are here mostly for the commentary, maybe. That might be a disappointment, but I'm going to assume that most of the people at this point joining aren't subscribers. You don't care what I have to say necessarily. You're looking at the moon because the other streams aren't working and it's cloudy where you are. So I'm going to leave you alone for a few minutes here. Probably get another snack. Talking this long takes a bit out of you, and rest my voice. So I'll be right back yet again. I'm going to leave the light off and I'm going to reposition the webcam actually before I go. So that you can definitely see. Actually, I'll put it down there because I know it's going to move in a diagonal direction. Smart thinking. You've got to plan ahead for such things. So I will return briefly. And I'm going to turn the fan on too. You can hear the wonderful background noise. Screw the fan. All right, so the moon is still in eclipse. As you can see, it is still red. It is in fact not made of blood. It's actually made of cheese, or at least they tell me that when I was a little kid. But you can see it's still very much in eclipse. I do not know exactly how long this is supposed to last. Let me take a peek and see if it's beginning to decline on its opposite side, because I'm not exactly sure when that's going to take place. So I need to keep aware of these things to know exactly how long the stream will be. I thank you all for joining me, of course. At this point, still 1,700 people watching it, a lot more than I expected. So, and